Good morning, Rosacado.
Oh, good morning, person.
Accurate.
I am so original.
I love how original you are. It makes me very happy.
Oh gosh, how are you?
I am, as usual, just rolling out of bed, but I.
I don't know if it's something that our guests want to know. Be like, yeah, I just rolled out of bed. I didn't take much time to get ready for this interview. Just kidding.
It's the best part though, because when you roll out of bed and you're just like, all right, let's go, it's like fresh. I kind of like that because it's like
I guess
the first impression, the first thoughts of the day are fresh. It's like when you wake up and you do a free write,
that's
and everything.
true. That's true.
So it's very kind of just like, hey, I'm fresh. What's up?
That's true. See,
Yeah.
whereas like I said before, I wake up
At 4 in the morning.
usually grumpy. No, no. Definitely not at 4 in the morning. Oh my gosh. No, I'm just not a morning person. But
Neither am I.
this morning, instead of, well, I did go on my Facebook and my Instagram, which is like not the best thing to do first thing in the morning, but you do that?
Yeah.
I know. It's
But I
like,
don't use Facebook though, just Instagram. So it's a little bit
well, I
easier.
mean, I don't know. It's the same people, whatever, but it's not the best habit. I keep trying to shift my camera because sometimes you can see the fire extinguisher in the back.
Thank you for practicing safe housing.
Right?
Yep.
That's funny. So yeah, no, this morning instead I decided I was doing that and I was like, oh, to hell with this. This is like depressing. What am I doing first thing in the morning? It's not, especially just the state of the world. I mean, but no, I decided I went on Netflix and there's this ridiculous documentary called We Are the Champions. And it has 30-minute episodes about different competitions in the world that are just
Oh.
bizarre competitions. And so I watched, I don't know, like 5 minutes of one just to put a smile on my face, which was about dog dancing.
Oh my God.
Maybe
I
you
have
would
to
like
look this
that.
up. I would love that. Dancing with the bitches.
Not all bitches, but yeah, some of them must be. This is true. This is true. But yeah, so put a little smile on my face,
I
but
love that.
still just, you know, hanging in,
Yes,
as a lot
absolutely.
of people are.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. There's just so
Yeah.
many things that we have to deal with right now. And
Oh,
for those that have tuned into our episode yesterday, they'll get it. They'll understand what we're referring to. Just perspectives are so
yeah.
like
Yeah.
perspective is the buzzword of 2020, in my opinion.
It is a good word. Yeah.
I don't know how it
And
adds up
shit
on.
show.
Yeah, I don't know what the word score is on a Scrabble board, but it's definitely up
Perspective.
there. Yeah.
That's a do you even, is there enough letters to do that? Because you only get seven.
Then no,
Well, well, not necessarily unless
you
someone
can
already put something
add.
down. You can add, but that would
You
be
can add
very, yeah, I can't even think of what you'd add.
perspective. P
Now
E
you're in a spelling bee.
RSPEC. I'm already tired of this.
Too long of a word.
Yeah,
Um,
that's how they
oh
count them
my
at seven.
goodness. So see, this is what I do. I think even yesterday, like I reel it back in, reel it back
Yeah.
in, reel it back in.
So
So
I
we
want
do,
to, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
introduce.
So in a few minutes on the show, we have one of my, well, yeah, she is a friend of mine. We don't know each other very well personally, but we are very aware of what we do in our professional lives and in our hustling. And her name is Ariana Fotinakis, and she is actually someone I met through a previous guest that I brought on the show, Nadia Pesherskaya.
Mm, right.
Ariana took over EHF, the Entrepreneurs of Health and Fitness of Vancouver, which is a network and community support group that is an email newsletter and, as far as I know, definitely a Facebook group. And Ariana can tell us more about how it's developed and evolved since she adopted it from Nadia. But in addition to Ariana helping out with EHF prior with Nadia and then taking it on as her own as Nadia started Icaria and Honest Wear. Ariana,
CBD, yep, CBD
yeah,
oil lady
yeah,
who we had on, yep.
yeah. So if you want to check out Nadia's episode, I highly recommend it. And it's very influential and definitely informative for men and for women, but definitely more female focused and in terms of, or female, you know what I mean? Anyways, okay. So Ariana is down to earth, super chill, very entrepreneurial boss woman, and has a background as a breathwork facilitator,
I saw that.
mindfulness coach, marketing and business, starting your own ventures, whatever they might be, and also has a background in Reiki, which I've learned that we went through the same Reiki trainer. And so that's how I kind of got reminded of Ariana and wanted to reconnect. And she's also a fitness coach and spin teacher and trainer. So she actually was someone that I referred to a studio that offered spin classes, and she was hired for that studio. And so since then, we haven't really been in touch as much, but that's why I want to have her on the show, as she'll be coming on any minute now. And I'm really excited to kind of see what she's up to and how she's been pivoting again, because it's relevant during COVID. And how
that's a good word for this year. Pivot.
Pivot, adjust, how her resilience, and then how she's also really built her own Instagram following and brand with the marketing tools and resources she has to share, and the tools that I think are very important for our community right now in managing stress, managing time, and how do we set ourselves up for our success in our future once COVID has transitioned into a more sustainable lifestyle that we apparently used to live almost 10 months ago.
Yeah. Well, and I noticed I hopped on her website and she had her own podcast.
Yes, that's right.
She did. She just did one episode. I saw that she hadn't done one in like 8 months, and she just did. Oh, there she is. Yay! I love Hero's voice always goes up like 2 octaves every time someone hops on. I love it. Hi! I can't even do that.
Well, because I know, right? I can't scream or shriek like most some men and most women I notice can, but when it gets excited, I'm like the gay gasp, boom, it's on.
It's great.
Amazing. It wakes me up and gets me stoked to be here.
Oh right? Oh, that'd be a good alarm, actually.
Oh my God. I could be like,
in the morning.
I can be like the Canadian non-famous version of Jonathan Van Ness.
Yes.
Go for it. I think you could do it.
A little less facial hair. Oh, Hero, did you freeze?
I think he may have.
Oh my goodness. That's the first time that's happened. Look, it's quite a gorgeous freeze, though.
It is. Zoom freezes are not the most.
They're not usually that good.
No.
Oh my goodness. That's a first. Look at that. Nice to meet you, Ariana.
It's good to meet you too. I might be next in line for the freezing. I had a few calls yesterday where it didn't, and then it happened.
Oh goodness. I'm just going to text and say, you froze. You're gorgeous. And I guess sign out and sign. Oh, he's signed. There we go. And then there were 2. I like your background there. I like your little is it oh my God, not a hexagon. It's how many sides? 6 sides.
3, 4, 5, 6.
Which would be hexagon is 5 and 6. I have no freaking idea what that.
I don't know. My partner's super into geometry and stuff. He would know all of that. That's not my area of expertise.
Not your bag.
Thought it was pretty.
It is pretty. Yeah. So what have you been doing this morning thus far?
I woke up at 8 o'clock. I took my dog for a walk. I put some makeup on, and now I'm here.
Nice.
It's been
beautiful.
A big morning.
Yes. No, that's good. That's good. Yeah. And so I listened to almost the whole thing not the whole thing. I hate to say, because I was running on empty last night, of your most recent podcast episode, because you hadn't done one in what, like
it's been a long time.
A long time. Yeah.
Yeah. I had my podcast for about 2 years, and then I just, as you know, it takes a lot of energy and effort and things like that. And so I needed to take a break. And I felt like running my mouth a little bit back in the spring. So it just seemed fitting to do one more episode.
Oh, that was from the spring.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense. We're like almost pretty much in the exact same position as we were in the spring.
Yes.
Which I don't know if anyone really knew that, but that is so funny. Oh, hero.
Technology, hey?
Technology. I know. He's pretty open about saying he's not into technology as much as I am, but yeah, interesting. Yeah. So no, that's cool. Oh, there he is. Oh, but now you're on the bottom. Oh,
figuring things out, connecting to audio.
There he is. Yay.
Okay, I think I figured out what was going on.
What happened? And now you're on the bottom. I don't know if you could rearrange these squares.
I feel like you can drag. Yeah, so I can drag myself down on my screen. I don't know if that changes
I can't even. I don't even know.
And then on my phone, I just scrolled to the right, and now it shows gallery view on my phone.
Oh, you had to go on your phone.
I think what happened was is that. Hold on a second. Now is it working? Hold on.
Well, okay. This is fine because we can see you and hear you fine.
Well, good, because I use Novus, like Novus Wi-Fi. It's a Vancouver-based like West End or West Side internet service. And I remember reading an email saying something on Wednesday that they might be down for service, but they don't usually go down for service during work hours. It's usually like, between 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. So I think that's what it is. That's all.
Okay, Novus.
So thanks, Novus.
Sorry, Novus, but
yeah,
not going to give you a decent plug there.
No, but it's funny because one of our future guests actually used to work for Novus, so that's really funny.
No.
Yeah, Deidre Sirianni.
Oh, anyways, funny. Anyway, yes. So,
anyways, now that we're all good, and hopefully this translates good audio-wise and video-wise in post-production.
You sound fine.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
I was just asking, is it okay, Ariana or Ariana?
Ariana.
Okay, that's what I thought, but and then you got the Kristens and the Kirstens and the Kirstens, and you just
totally. Everyone likes to. I get Ariana, all the different things.
Yeah.
Ariana.
Exactly. But you're a venti, not a grande, so.
Exactly.
What?
Yes, too. But
yeah. Neither do I. Now I do. Ariana Grande. Oh my God. Wow, that took me a while. I just was asking Ariana if about her podcast, which her episode that she did in the spring was the last one she had done, but she hadn't done one in quite a while. And we were just chatting about that. So just catching you up a little bit.
Yes, that's fantastic. So when Rachel and I always chat a little bit before the show starts with our guests. So I just kind of gave her a brief summary of how you and I connected initially a few years ago, maybe even longer, maybe it was 4 years ago. Yeah. And how I met you through Nadia and through EHF. And then you and I, well, actually I didn't mention this part to Rachel. I thought I would wait until you came on, but you and I sat down, we went for bubble tea, I remember, at chat time. And we were talking about entrepreneurialism and I think getting into studios or getting established with personal training and doing routines for different groups of people. And I think that's what it was. I think you were starting to train a group of people and you were used to training 1 or 2 or 3 people, and you were doing a circuit setup, and you were asking me how would you do that for multiple groups of people or a larger setting of people. I think that's how we first met and you wanted my insight. So that was really neat to kind of get to know you in that context. And then that's how we started to forge our connection and understanding of the industry and where we're at. And then I think I also knew you taught spin. So then I saw that you might be interested in teaching in studios for spin. And then we connected on that as well. And then from there, we kind of just kept in touch. And then not to open up a can of worms because I have no idea what's going on. Then I did my Reiki training, and then there was also another connection to you through my Reiki training. So, because I did my training with Meltem.
Oh, right. And so you did your training with my partner Jordan then, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Right.
Yes. And so then I'm like, oh my God, like what a small world. Like how is Ariana? And so then again, I'm like, okay, right. Like this is so neat how small the world is. Right. Yeah. And
especially,
so then,
especially when it comes to like holistic healing and health and those kinds of things in Vancouver, I find that it can be a bit of a small world. There's always like maybe not even 1 degree of separation.
Mm-hmm. I agree completely.
Between
like
people.
A quarter of a degree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. So when we were starting getting juicy in the podcast, and then I thought about Nadia, I also automatically thought about yourself. And I've been following your Instagram, following what you've been doing, and I think it's really impressive and remarkable what you've created, what you've established for yourself, and what you continue to do. And so I think it would be a really interesting conversation to understand kind of how that all came about. And what have been some of the experiences so far, and where has it continued to evolve and to transpire?
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Can of worms.
Sure. I was like, yeah, not a big question at all. Just everything.
We get juicy and we go deep. We destroy the box.
That's perfect.
God. Oh Lord. Yeah.
That's good.
I'm gonna zip my mouth. Okay. So
yeah, where do you want me to start with that?
Right?
Yeah. Well, how about let's
narrow it down, Hero.
Let's start with your initial interest in health and wellness, and whether was it from a personal journey, or in addition, was it from something that was outside of yourself that inspired you to learn more and become inspired to become more masterful in it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. I think like my whole life I've been really active. I was a competitive dancer and figure skater growing up.
Wow.
Very like type A Capricorn energy kind of things, like really like to just push myself and push my body. I kind of fell out of that when I was about 14 or 15, as you usually do. You know, sports that you start when you're young, you tend to not carry through a lot through high school and whatnot. And I rediscovered fitness on a really deep level when I was 23. I had struggled with drug and alcohol addiction for 10 years prior to that. And when I got sober, I had no idea what to do with my time. I was like, what do people do on a Monday afternoon if they don't go to the bar? So I just decided to start trying working out at home, going to the gym, started setting really small goals for myself. Like, I'm going to try a spin class today, or I'm going to talk to somebody that I don't know. And through setting those goals, through reconnecting with my body, I started to reconnect with myself and to build back confidence. And that was something that I hadn't experienced in a really, really long time.
Wow.
So yeah, it was such a potent part of my sobriety journey. And a year after, so it was January 2012 when I got sober. And then in January of 2013, I looked back at like who I was then and then who I was a year before. And I was like a completely different person. And so I didn't know, I didn't think that I was going to help people with their sobriety journeys or anything like that. But fitness had just had such a transformative power over my life. And I wanted to see how I could bring that to other people. So I got certified as a trainer, not knowing anything about business or what I was going to do. But that was really what led me to want to, I guess, bring this to the people.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
I didn't know that. That's amazing.
That is amazing. So did you, at the time when you first started, was your goal to specifically, not maybe for lack of a better word, but target people that were going through similar situation as you? Like, did you do any mental health or counseling training, or was there anything, nothing?
No. Yeah. And I didn't want to go down that route because, you know, sobriety is, it's a very different journey for everybody, right? It's one that's not linear. And again, there's definitely that component of needing to make sure that you're qualified to support people within those journeys.
Right.
I think at that point, I was just like fitness, and super stoked about it. And I was like, I will just train whoever will work with me. So I put ads on Craigslist and had super weird people come to work with me and things
from Craigslist. No kidding.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Would not suggest that these days. But yeah, I was just really, really passionate about it. And I thought, I looked back and I was not a great person when I was drinking. And when I was sober, I was actually a really nice person. I was really helpful. I was really kind. And I thought, wow, if fitness can like do that for me, if it can take me from being kind of a dirtbag to being someone who really does want to support people and be of service, like how could I help maybe a mom who's feeling run down and is not able to be present for her kids? How could I support somebody who's maybe not showing up fully in their job and they're not speaking their mind? So that was really my intention, was to support people in taking better care of themselves so that they could then go out and fulfill the roles that life asked of them.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
Amazing. And that just, comes back to your intention of being there of service with the people and sharing your lessons and your life experiences with those, and then letting them pay it forward. So it creates that ripple effect, which I think is what we all try to do with what we mean with service.
And I can only assume, but again, just an assumption, that since COVID, actually I should ask, prior to some of the shutdowns and the restrictions and those kinds of things, were you mostly teaching one-on-ones? Are you doing privates? It's kind of like a combination of everything, or?
Yeah. So my business has evolved a lot, because it was like early 2013 when I started, like kind of end of 2012, early 2013. And so my business has evolved a lot. I haven't really actively been growing the personal training side of my business probably since 2017. I got trained as a life coach in 2017. I realized that a lot of the folks who were coming to work with me weren't competitive athletes, like wanting to take things to the next level. They were, again, just very real people who had information, had tools, and they weren't using them. And so I wanted to give them the resources to be able to be self-sufficient, so that they didn't always need to come see a personal trainer. So I started doing that. I got into business coaching. Last year, I got into offering breathwork. And so this year, my personal training practice was already pretty small. I had about 4 one-on-one clients, and I had a group of women who I trained for small group personal training. And we had 2 groups of 6 women training twice a week, with another trainer working for me, helping me run that.
Right.
When things shut down, we moved everything online, and I'm really grateful that I was able to find a way to make things work, and B, that everyone was on board and we were still able to keep the community going and things like that. And then as the summer kind of progressed, I started to realize, I have a lot of things that I want to be doing with my business and with my impact. And I thought that I could just keep working with my clients and, not try to grow that side, but just kind of bring them with me while still working towards these future things. Yeah. And I started to realize that by clinging on to the past, there was also a very energetic component where I was clinging on to a past version of myself almost. And I had to let go of this thing that I really loved doing, so that I could also let go of that part of me. And then so I could continue to move forward and do some of these other things that I'm really feeling called to do. So end of October was when I let go of training. So it's only been a few weeks.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty big.
Yeah. It was a big transition. I have a lot more free time now.
Right.
I don't know what to do with it yet.
Amazing.
Well, it sounds like you've got quite an entrepreneurial spirit. I'm sure you'll be just fine.
It's very easy for me to find things to build.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, and you need to be self-sufficient and innovative and resilient and perseverant. I think what was the thing that I came up with? I came up with my own kind of manifesto, and I either call it part or trap. I don't know, but either way, but it's perseverance, ambition, resilience, and tenacity.
Love it.
Because those 4 things are the anchor of what I've had to establish in my own life as a contractor and now as an employee, and balancing both. And then as we pivot through COVID, you need those skill sets and those qualities to really be self-sufficient with being on your own, because if you don't have those skills, how are you supposed to pivot? How are you supposed to be find new opportunities when there might not be opportunity? It falls on you.
Oh yeah. And then another word that comes to mind for me is adaptability.
Yes.
That has been huge this year, I think, for a lot of people. And it's adaptability is something that usually people have some time to work up to, expressing or exploring. But it's basically like with the pandemic, it was like, no, got to be adaptable, like now.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely rocked people's world, put people off kilter, whatever you want to say.
Well, yes. And if you look at the yoga studio, fitness studio business, the public studio business model, gyms and stuff, and how they were supposed to reopen like last Thursday, and some of them opened up for a few days, and now they've been ordered to close again.
Yeah.
Right. And so to have these types of business models that are not sustainable when it comes to a state of emergency, and when they're offering modalities like spin and hot yoga and things that exert and that spew all the things that we're trying to prevent because of science and based on health and fact, and yet understandably you're a business that is trying to financially sustain yourself, and so of course you're going to do anything you can possibly do to stay open. But from the very beginning, I said, and I'm not concerned about how vocal I am about this, you shouldn't be open anyways. You should be virtual only and let go of your leases, or find the support you can to maintain enough of your lease, so this way when you can reopen, you can actually operate your business even if you're in a deficit.
And not to kind of play devil's advocate, but I've been there. I've owned a studio, small studio, but sometimes, I mean, there's so many more layers in that. There's a lease. You don't know if you can get out of your lease. I know a lot of landlords, I don't know the situation right now. I think a lot of them were given some flexibility with their tenants and those kinds of things, but there's a shit ton more to it. But I do hear what you're saying. And I feel like that could be a good segue to asking Ariana about, because you said you do business coaching, correct? Yeah. So how has that changed for you with, I guess, your focus with your clients since COVID? Like what's changed, or what, I mean, have you become more of a therapist, even though you probably didn't know you were going to be? I don't know.
in all of my work, there's always really been that very like human-centered approach. And so even with business, my philosophy has always been, the marketing strategy is only as strong as the human behind it. Our ability to fulfill our dreams, to bring in the clients that we want to work with, to find the new spaces that we want to work within. Ultimately, if we can't do that from a place of wholeness, from a place of trusting ourselves, from moving through those places of self-doubt, it's actually not really going to be that effective. So there's always been a very like personal component into the work that I do. Definitely more so over the last few months. There's been a lot of support through crisis management, things like that. But I actually feel really fortunate to have been on, I guess, kind of like the back end of a lot of businesses, because you hear about small businesses that are crumbling and they're under all of this pressure to keep things going. And I'm really fortunate that I've actually seen a lot of people really thriving. And yes, there have been difficult moments in the sense of not, maybe having to pivot, like you said, or to adapt. Adapt is actually, especially with things like this, is an approach I like to take more, because that pivot, there were so many people in the beginning and they're like, well, I worked offline and now I work online, so I got to redo my website and like redo all of this stuff. But it's like, eventually things will change, right? And then you're going to have to like repivot again. So let's ride that wave and just kind of adapt as things go. But yeah, to be able to witness people having to maybe go through the uncomfortable moments of letting go of things that they actually didn't really want to be doing, to then create space to go after their dreams. I had tons of people who lost jobs, but were getting money through CERB. And they were like, this is a perfect time for me to actually start doing what I want to do. So where do I start?
That's what I did.
Amazing. What did you do?
Well, I was not to bring it to me. I can relate to that, but God, I'm so bad at making a long story short. Just before COVID, let's just say I was working in the wine industry as a merchandiser up in the Okanagan. So I was in the sales realm of retail wine, working for Peller. So Andrew Peller, who owns like Grey Monk Winery and Copper Moon and like a lot of different wineries. And so I was on the road all the time, and I've got a background in sales. So that's kind of where I was headed. But I realized that since having my yoga studio, and we'll have another episode about this because we haven't actually talked about the yoga studio I had and the, for lack of better words, some of the trauma that I dealt with that. But I was laid off temporarily from this job that I have up here, and then realized that I was neglecting all the creative and the holistic and the yoga that I kind of just literally abandoned because I was so traumatized by something. It just kind of made me realize I was ready to come back to it in a different way. So, yeah. So now, I mean, I'm also doing, what I also love to do is social media marketing and online marketing and those kinds of things. So I'm doing that as well for some businesses, and just reevaluated and took a step back. And, sometimes you got to recreate yourself, but just do it in a different way that maybe you weren't doing before. So anyway, enough about me.
There you go. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I can relate to that completely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. And one thing I wanted to ask you as well, Ariana, is again, in terms of adaptability and growth and everything, I mean, you've grown in your Instagram platform really incredibly, especially since I've seen it develop. And you did have a podcast, and you are a breathwork facilitator. And so how have you been integrating these different skills and resources, these different tools that have helped you with other people through COVID, I would say? How have you applied those skills?
Yeah, great question. So again, I feel fortunate for many, many things. But one of the things I feel really grateful for is, I'm in a position where I can support folks if they maybe don't have the means or don't have the finances or feel financially unable to invest in things. So, I did a lot of free online breathwork offerings throughout COVID, was able to subsidize some of my clients' rates when needed, took on some clients just because I had the time, we were all home and everything like that. So to be able to support people in that way. And then breathwork is one of those things, I think because it's relatively new in the mainstream, people go out to seek breathwork. But ultimately, what I view breathwork as is simply another tool that I have in my toolbox. And what I really love is when somebody comes to me and they have something that they want to work towards, we can use the things that I have in my toolbox. So whether that's coaching, whether that's having the strategic understanding of business, being able to bring in breath work when we're coming up against some trauma or something that's holding them back from being able to move forward, plus some of the other energy healing modalities that I work with, some weird stuff, but also really fun stuff. And to just be able to kind of pick and choose from those when they are needed, to be able to support folks. And, breath work, especially have either of you ever done like conscious connected breath work?
I don't know the term, but
that's what I was going to say.
Okay.
I'm guessing I have, but not knowing.
I'm guessing I have too. Like, is it some sort of mindfulness breathing?
It's a little different.
Okay.
So typically, if you have gone to, say, a breathwork circle where you're like lying in a circle, or you're in like a yoga studio and you're all lying on your mat and you're breathing for like 45 minutes to an hour, and you can have like really big emotional releases. You can sometimes get into altered states of consciousness. I've had people tell me that they've gone swimming with dolphins before, things like that.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, when we do that for longer periods of time, it really is potent because it does open us up to healing a lot of our wounds and accessing a lot of our insights and information that we may not be able to access in an ordinary state. But purely from the nervous system standpoint, it's so beneficial for regulating our nervous system, teaching us to respond to stress when needed, and teaching us to come out of stress when the stressor is no longer there. And especially in our world right now, where it's like there's something, and then, we have like a day of being calm, and then there's like another thing.
Oh God.
Being able to like support people in regulating themselves and working with the intelligence of their bodies to not always have to be in this state of fight or flight has been really, really special throughout this time.
Oh my gosh. And for those of us that live with chronic anxiety and mental health conditions that already make it more challenging to regulate, and then in addition to those that are maybe feeling these things for the first time because COVID has somehow triggered it and they don't know what the hell it is, which sorry that you're going through that, but hey, welcome to our whole life story. Right? Like legitimately, the fact that you can be a beacon for those people to realize that it's okay to feel the way that they feel, that they're human, that they're natural, but here's ways that we can help you with it, and that you can actually become self-sufficient and in control of your own experience and your emotional regulation and distress tolerance.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know what I love? I'm seeing so many posts now on social media with from people who maybe have lived with mental health challenges throughout their lives prior to all this, and who are now using themselves as like a tool for those that never had dealt with it, that are dealing with it now. And they're putting out these beautiful words and posts, just, you're not alone. Like, we know how this, this is pretty normal. Like it's okay. And it's like, all these people that maybe had to rely on others to boost them up, like myself too, with mental health. But now it's like people that had these challenges are now being able to help others. Which is kind of cool. Like I'm noticing that more and more. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. What I was also wondering about is, how is EHF doing? Are you still running it? Is it still in existence? And how has it evolved since, from me being part of it with Nadia, how has it shifted and evolved over the last few years?
What does that stand for again?
Entrepreneurs in Health and Fitness.
Thank you.
So EHF, we actually laid EHF to rest at the end of October, and really just kind of like went through a rebrand from it. Yes, so essentially it is still going under a different name. We're now the 5D Business Collective, and it's definitely evolved. I think, as I've kind of alluded to within my own practice, I recognize that it was not always just about the movement and the nutrition. There was definitely a very like emotional well-being component, mental well-being, and even a very spiritual component to my clients' health. And it's the same thing with business as well, right? Like, it's not just about sales and marketing and what our Instagram looks like. It's like, what is our mental state when we're going and putting ourselves out there? How are we feeling about our businesses? What are we trying to gain from our businesses that we could actually be cultivating from within? So just as with my business coaching clients and how I really take that human-centered approach with the 5D Business Collective, we are still supporting folks in growing their businesses, but we're also providing support for like the human being who's behind the business, providing those spaces where they can connect with one another, talk about what's coming up for them, and also teaching business from what I believe is the lens that's needed. So really bringing in this understanding of trauma, both with how it impacts us as business owners, but how it affects our communities, and being able to be mindful of that when we market ourselves and our services and when we engage in sales conversations. Beginning to break out of the norms of what a lot of the online business gurus are teaching around marketing and what things are supposed to look like and how to brand yourself, and essentially just allowing folks to give themselves the permission slips that they've been looking for to do things in a way that works for them and feels good for them, even if it goes outside of what they've been taught up to this point. So it's less of like trainers and nutritionists, which is mostly what EHF was before. And now we actually have quite a few spiritual practitioners in there, energy healers. We still have some trainers and nutritionists who are taking their work a little bit deeper with their clients. And it's still a very new thing. It was only end of October that we made this switch. Okay. But it's been a long time coming, and we've been seeing more and more people from these new mindsets coming into the community, and the feedback's been really positive so far.
That's awesome. And I'm assuming, is there a new website too? We'll share all this in the notes. Website. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Cool.
Wow.
Very cool.
Okay, so that's new for me because I remember I got the last newsletter, so I wasn't aware. I mean, it was probably in the newsletter, but for those that watch the podcast and listen to the podcast, people know that I don't read. So, of course, when I see, I'm like, okay, cool, awesome, it's still around. But oh, Rachel, you're just like, oh, hero.
No. I just.
But
if it's extremely important, you will.
Yes, exactly.
Because I've gotten you to read some things, which I'm pretty proud of myself to get you to read a couple things. But anyway.
Yes, exactly. So with everything happening with the 5D project and the platform and the network that it is, what would you like to see with its development and kind of who else is behind it? You alluded to the different kind of specialties that people offer, but who are some of the people that also are part of it that you find are really making an impact with helping other people, including yourself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So first, I have to give a huge shout out to my social media manager, Courtney, and she does so much more than create content for our social media, but she's absolutely amazing with engaging the community. If you check out our Instagram, she's the one who's like doing all of our really cool stories that like move and have videos, and I have no idea how she does them, but they're amazing.
Easy. Yeah,
and creates all of our content. She's been really, really beneficial and really helpful in kind of holding me accountable in changing this direction. You know, it's comfortable to just keep doing things as you've always done. So it's been really great to have her by my side.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would say we've got Courtney, who's been both like from the back end and being really helpful with engaging the community. Lisa, she is a craniosacral therapist. She works with highly sensitives, helping them learn to regulate their nervous systems. Very different approach than what I take with breathwork, but she works with flower essences, things like that. Her Instagram is Combination Healing.
Cool.
Wow.
Yeah, really, really cool work that she does.
Craniosacral's, I think, totally undervalued. Maybe it's amazing. Mm-hmm. It is amazing. Yeah.
Well, my understanding of craniosacral is that it's actually the seed of chiropractic practice as well as osteopathic practice.
Yeah,
like
and
it has
connects
both,
to RMT.
Right?
It connects to massage therapy too. Like there's a lot of massage therapists that will add craniosacral onto their roster of techniques and stuff like that. So
that's phenomenal.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just acknowledging that's phenomenal. Please. What were you going to say?
I think just because it's gentle, we like tend to poo-poo things that don't make us feel like we got beat up in the session, right? But it's like it can actually be really, really potent, and it doesn't be painful.
No,
for sure. Well, I mean, when it comes to energy healing and things like that, you know, and again, I talk about this all the time. I'm one of the minority of, especially if you take my age bracket or my demographic, my gender, like all the things that we can't change of ourselves. I'm one of the few people that actually does what I do within what I'm specialized in and what I love to share with people. And that's just a fact. As far as, let's take in terms of Vancouver, let's talk about like the immediate city. I can only think of a handful of people that might do something similar and that are not even the same reach as I might reach. So when we talk about like stuff that's gentle, stuff that's therapeutic, that's not trying to beat you up or give you, you know, that's not going to make you throw up at the end of the day or in 45 minutes, because there's many activities like spin or extreme Pilates or high intensity fitness and stuff with people
or hot yoga.
And things that people don't know how to regulate or how to do it safely or how to pace themselves is probably a good way of putting it too, to know their limit. I can't stress the importance of rest and recovery and healing and slowing down and listening and stillness while you actually are moving inside, because people don't realize that when you're still, you don't stop. Everything inside you is still moving and actually becomes more accelerated because you have an ability to listen and to process.
Yeah. I think it's starting to be a little bit more understood that we don't just need the crazy cardio. Like I think especially with the pandemic, I feel like just because mental health has been more prevalent right now. I think people are realizing that, you know, softer approaches like meditation and mindfulness and, like you said, breath work and, you know, the yin or the restorative yoga, or like those things are starting to be much more valued and much more realizing how potent they really are, more than just, I mean, don't get me wrong, we also need to sweat, right? We need to release those toxins. We need to, that's phenomenal for our minds as well. But
yeah, I think, you know, it's those things like high intensity training and everything like that. Like, it's all great for us. It's really good for the body. But again, when we're overindulging, you know, what's the agenda behind that? What's causing us to feel like we have to constantly push ourselves that much? What are we running away from? And I feel like as we continue to kind of dismantle these patriarchal and capitalistic norms that we're operating within, and we allow ourselves to slow down and not attach our self-worth to like how hard we're working and all of those kinds of things, this embracing that we're already starting to see will continue to increase.
Totally. Yeah.
No, for sure. No, it's so true. Yeah. Do you have anything you wanna add, Rachel? Anything that's coming to your mind?
No, I've been, you know, I just knocked my table. You know, as we go along, like there's definitely things that pop into my mind, which is what we end up talking about, which is great. I mean, not really. Thanks for putting me on the spot. No, just kidding.
You're welcome. Well, no, because there's a lot of floating thoughts that are coming through my mind as you're discussing and sharing these observations, Ariana. And the one thing that I keep thinking about is, what have you learned about yourself from your evolution in coaching, through high stress periods, through moments where we have had to adapt? Because I know that we've talked a little bit about the people that you've helped and the businesses that you've helped, but what have been some changes in yourself that you've noticed, and how have you observed them and or applied them to your life now and going forwards?
It's a really good question. And I feel like I need to like unravel the piece of paper to be like, well, I learned this, and that.
Please do.
Yeah, I think two things that really come to mind here. The main one is, even after I got sober, you know, fitness kind of took over in terms of like not fully dealing with what was below the surface. And then it was with work and busyness. And again, this, as I've spoken to, this idea of attaching my self-worth to my output and things like that. And so learning to detach myself from these things, which is not a linear process. I still have days where I catch myself wanting to work more and do more. And I have to really check in and ask what that intention behind it is. But being able to really find wholeness from within. And I know that when I say that, we can hear these words and these concepts, and they can just seem like these kind of like airy fairy things. And everyone talks about like, you know, you're worthy and things like that. And, you know, I want to acknowledge that we all have had very different experiences that have led us to look to others or to things outside of ourselves to find our measures of self-worth. And so being able to be patient with myself and understand that this is something that, like, you know, I could understand it logically, but it might take some time before it really like lands within me. That was a really big thing for me, and really embracing this idea of slowness, as we've been talking about. You know, I used to train for triathlons, half marathons. I loved working out super, super hard, pushing my body. And that's actually not how I'm meant to operate. And for a really long time, I thought there was something wrong with me, that, you know, I just needed to dial in my nutrition better, or I needed to sleep better, and then I'd be able to perform at these super high levels. And I've thrown myself into physical and mental burnout quite a few times. And I think I just have a body and an energetic system that might be a little bit more sensitive than other people's.
Right.
And so being okay with sleeping in until 8 o'clock on a weekday. Like I've learned this year to I don't usually book things before 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. so that I can sleep as long as I need to and have my slow mornings and do what I need to do for me so that I can then go out and do all of these other things for other people that I love to do. And so, yeah, learning that about me and then like giving myself the permission and also recognizing my privilege. I know that not everyone can like
can do that.
Start work until noon.
Yeah.
But there are things that we all have available to us that allow us to work with ourselves in little and different ways.
Okay, see, now I have a few questions. Number one, or A, do you feel like when you became sober that you were almost substituting one extreme for another extreme, which is to push your body so hard that physically with exercise, that it was almost akin to drugs and alcohol. And so it was almost like there was a substitution with something else. It was definitely healthier, but it was another extreme.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
Yeah. And even with work, right? Like when I was building
business,
I was still working full time. I was working 17 hours a day for like 2 years. Like not a good thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. And then my other question is, did you go to any meetings? Is that something that you, like AA meetings? Was that something that you?
I did not.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Back, AA at the time, I didn't consider myself a spiritual person. And looking at some of the tenets that was shared within AA, they didn't resonate with me. And I didn't know where else to find groups and things like that. So this was back when forums were a big thing. And I used to just hang out in forums and I would read people's stories, talk to people. And that was kind of where I got my connection in those early days. It's interesting. When was it? 2018, end of 2018, somebody had suggested I actually start looking for sobriety groups at this point. Not because alcohol was a factor in my life at that point, but just to deepen into that recovery process.
Right.
And it's something that I'm still open to and I explore now and then, but I feel pretty solid within the different groups and communities that I support myself within, even though substance abuse isn't a main focus. Everyone kind of comes in with their own bag of stuff that they're working through. And there's a lot of parallels, even if it's not similar to what I've been through. So it's not something I'm against, but just not something I've done yet.
I think that's actually, it's a good thing for people to hear that, because it's, I think that when people think of maybe having these substance abuse issues or, those kinds of challenges, the first thing they might think of is AA or those kinds of ways of helping yourself and heal. But there are so many other avenues. It's not just black or white, right? So it's great to hear your journey, and just so people know that there's, if one thing didn't work for them, it doesn't mean that there's not something else.
Yeah, and
out there.
There's alternatives to AA now too. I don't know the names of them, but if you Google like alternative to AA, there are some that they have a very different approach in how they work with things. So
that's good.
Yeah, because I also have come across a good amount of people, and I actually totally see the correlation. I really do. I see a lot of people, and when I was really in the studio community, because I'm not anymore, and I don't miss it. But when I was in that community and seeing so many people, you get a lot of that demographic and a lot of that community, because it is a place that people turn to for holistic healing, that turn to it for self-reflection, that turn to the exploration of their mind and reconnecting to their bodies and being in a safe space where they can let go. And so I've had some conversations with them as well, and understanding what has been effective for their health and their wellness in their road to their own recovery, because it's going to look different for every single person and what they identify with as that term. And so many have expressed, I do go to AA, or I do go to even like other groups that are affiliated with AA. And some do say that they really identify, and some people say that they don't, And one of the cool things that has come up through this whole experience of people that I've met is that there are programs that are specified for recovery, like what is it called? Y12SR, which is yoga that's for 12 steps of recovery.
Oh, cool.
Which is really, really neat. I'll give him a shout out because I think he's an incredible human being in our Vancouver community that's
really neat. Yeah.
A pioneer for this specialty of yoga teaching, Timothy Bang, who is part of the LGBTQ community and does teach in some studios in our city as well. So whoever is being reached, if you're watching this and you're curious about what Y12SR is, I know very minimal about it because it's very foreign to what my background is or my community is. Timothy Bang, or Tim Bang Boom, I think is his Instagram handle. Check him out. I think he would really be a good resource for you. But back to you, Ariana. I'm really curious to know, again, in addition to what you just answered, Rachel, you said another couple things that came to mind as well, yeah? That you wanted to ask?
Oh, no, I kind of already said
combined.
Them. Yeah, they were combined,
Yeah. So that...
I was like, were they? No, there was the only other thing, I mean, we're kind of past it now, but Ariana, you were talking about how just giving yourself permission, sorry, Hero, but you did trigger something. You were talking about giving yourself permission to, listen to your body, sleep until 8:00 if that's what your body needs. Don't feel guilty or bad that you're doing these things because maybe that's not the norm. I guess this is more of a general conversation maybe, but it drives me crazy how like we always, even nowadays, still feel like we need to fit into this box of like the 9-to-5 job and the house, the picket fence and kids and a dog. And like that stuff is still very much ingrained in a lot of us, that if we're not doing those things, then what's wrong with us? Or like so I guess my question maybe for you is how did you get over that hump and just be like listen to yourself and be okay with that and just be true to you as to what you need, and not beat yourself up over it, because I still do that.
Totally. Yeah. And like, I'm not perfect on that either, right? Like, it's a beautiful day out. I can see snow on the mountains. I'm like, ooh, I have work to do, but I would really like to go out and walk in the snow. So I'm like, gonna figure out what I'm gonna do about that after this.
And sorry, and one more thing, actually, I feel like things have changed with our generation. I can kind of guess that you're about early 30s, 31, 32, 31. I was doing the math from before, but our parents' generation, it's like, there's no way, like there's not as much play as there is now with our generation. It's
True.
like, yeah, it's like, I guess for them, it truly was like you stay at the same job for 40, 50 years. That's just the way it was. And, now that we're kind of learning, like life isn't just that. It's not just your job. That's not just what defines you. That I think where a lot of us are struggling with that balance and that innate part of us that maybe was listening to the previous generations as well. So
totally. I have a lot of friends, people who have worked with me, people very close to me in my life who've come from that kind of upbringing where, yes, you go to school, you get the job, you buy the home, you do the thing.
Yeah.
I did grow up in, I guess, like a slightly unconventional family where that wasn't what was relayed to me. My parents were always very supportive and just like, do what makes you happy. But I also grew up in a home where we didn't have a lot of money, and my family owned a restaurant. And so my parents were constantly working. So I can also see where some of that like hustle workhorse tendency has come into play for me.
Yeah.
And then to your question about like, how did I unlearn some of these things and how did I start to give myself permission to actually slow down? I don't know. Can I swear on this or is
God, yes.
Oh yeah. You should have heard me yesterday. Our intro was I like, what the fuck, hero, fuck. Yeah. Anyway.
You should hear me every episode.
We've been pretty PG this episode, but anyway.
Yes. I know, that's why I thought I would ask first.
No, thank you for asking.
But yeah, you've probably seen these things floating around on social media where it's like, it's a pivotal moment when you become sick of your own bullshit. And that's really what it was for me. It was like, I had to slow down because I didn't have a choice. My body was falling apart. I was like not recovering from workouts properly. I had an eye twitch that lasted for 3 years. And let me tell you, that gets really annoying. But then also when it goes away, it's like, oh, I feel like I've lost a part of myself.
Right.
So yeah, dealing with these injuries that I couldn't get over, that stupid eye twitch, hormonal imbalances where it was like, I would have, maybe 8 weeks of what would be considered really intense PMS. And I'd have 1 week where I would feel okay. And then it would be like 8 weeks again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Been there. Yep.
Yeah. So it sucked. And I tried all of these different things of like supplements and changing my eating and all that kind of stuff. And it was really once I stopped exercising, like just would go for walks rather than like doing my workouts and things like that. And I had to do it because I was forced to do it. And then once I started to see how I actually started to feel better and how my eye twitch wouldn't happen on days when I didn't have my alarm set for 4:00 in the morning, it was a really big indicator to me that there was something to that. And that if I wanted to be active for my whole life, if I wanted to make the impact that I want to make and support the people that I want to support for the long term, I need to change something now, because at the rate that I was going at, there's no way in hell that I'd be able to keep doing that in 10 years.
That is a huge takeaway. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was also going to ask, because we didn't really inquire about, Ariana growing up, Ariana through adolescence, Ariana through young adulthood. Is there anything you want to add to the story that we've learned about you so far in this hour and how that has translated to now? Kind of learn lessons, and you kind of alluded to it, but is there anything more that you would be interested or that you think our listeners would be compelled to hear or that might help them?
Yeah, I think, and I share this just in case there's any folks who maybe have children or who want to have children. And I love seeing the conversation around like highly sensitive children coming into the mainstream more. But right. And when our parents didn't talk about this when we were growing up, no one knew about that. Mm-mm. And so I think that the lack of like society's understanding around what it means to be highly sensitive as a child, and when you're just constantly told to stop being so sensitive and get your shit together and do whatever.
I'm still told that sometimes.
Right.
Won't say by who, but not you, Hero.
So when I look back now, I can see so many correlations. Again, I was a competitive dancer and figure skater. There was something at some point that happened that made me feel like I needed to push myself to be worthy, or that the achievements that I was getting from school and parents praising me and things like that led me to adopt more of that high achieving mindset, which is great and can also be detrimental. And when it came to my substance abuse, I started drinking when I was 13. And by the time I was 15, I was doing hard drugs with my friends, like on the weekends. And then by the time I graduated, I was like getting trashed at school. And at first I thought it was because I just like to party. And now looking back, I can see that a lot of those like really sensitive tendencies that I had as a young child, you get made fun of for them in high school. And a really great way to suppress any sensitivity that you're dealing with is to just numb yourself all of the time. So I think what's really important is for folks to have an understanding of the differences that children can have, and to be able to work with them and nurture them in their own wonderful uniqueness, so that hopefully the next generation that's growing up is significantly less traumatized than the one that we are currently living in right now.
Hell
Amen.
Yes.
And actually, Ariana, I think I've mentioned this upcoming episode about a bajillion times, but because it all relates to what you just said too. we have a doctor coming on the show named Dr. Rachel Yehuda, and she's from the New York City or the NYC Mount Sinai Hospital, like some of the big hospital in New York. And her studies have been predominantly around generational trauma, like huge. Specifically, she's done some big studies on Holocaust survivors and then their kids, their grandkids, and just all that stuff that's been picked up through generations. So that, I mean, what you just said, it all, you know, it's interconnected, and how can we change that or break the chain?
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah. I think it's beautiful that, you know, people are stepping into this healing work and they're coming home to themselves. They are finding things like Reiki or breath work or yoga or whatever that spiritual practice might be. Like, I feel like this generation that we're currently in, it's like we've carried so much baggage from our parents and our ancestors and our lineage. And we're here in this really painful time. And I think it's also why so many more millennials are dealing with mental health challenges than previous generations had, because we have so much weight on our shoulders. And we also have the ability to break those cycles. We have the resources and the abilities to take this time to heal ourselves so that for our future generations, we can hopefully pass on a little bit less of that stuff.
And our awareness is that much more heightened, thankfully, also to technology and to public exposure of information that is accessible to us at an instant. Because even that being said, with the rough 10 years between all of our chronological ages, and the way even in that 10-year period things have changed dramatically and have impacted us differently, it's very interesting to see that, because our next generation, I have a couple cousins that are the ages of like 6, 7, and then basically 13, one just about to have his bar mitzvah, which is interesting during a pandemic. But my point being is, you see the impact of technology and social awareness and current events, and how much evolution comes from every generation that follows. And in my humble opinion, that much faster from our millennial generation onward, because of how much has changed in the way that we receive, transmit, and share information without any boundary or restriction because of our technology.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily, I don't know if you were alluding to it, the fact that that's not necessarily a positive thing.
More just as an observation.
It's an observation, yeah.
Yeah, I think our generation, like our millennial generation, like I'd say like from like early 90s maybe, I think we were still kind of in a safe bubble where it wasn't so radically open to everybody just yet. And we had enough years to grow up in childhood and early teenagehood to kind of have some contrast of what was before. And I think, Rachel, you have even more contrast because you do have slightly more time to see where that shift really began, right? Like,
well, yeah, I mean, I was born in the early 80s. So it's, you know, I don't even remember. I don't think I ever heard the word anxiety until I was 18, 19.
Right.
Even though I had been dealing with and was a sensitive child growing up, highly sensitive, and definitely had probably anxiety before that. But no one talked about it in school.
No.
Depression, anxiety, like, no, it was none of that stuff. It was mostly just about how not to get pregnant at 14 years old. Like, that was
how to put a condom on a wooden stump that doesn't look anything like a penis.
There we go.
Right? Like, all that shit.
Exactly. So
yeah. It was because of my mother and my grandmother, because of their experience with mental health, of why I was on medication when I was like 5 or 6 years old already, and in clinical therapy and everything under the sun, just to figure out what the fuck was wrong with me and my brain.
Wow.
Had it not been from my mom's side, I wouldn't have had that. And my dad is incredible, but it's just not something my dad really grew up with in the same way that my mother did. So God bless that. I can't believe I just said that. But yeah, like, having my mother and the support of my father conjoined to find those tools early on and ongoing to now, because I'm still fucked up beyond relief.
We all are.
I know.
Beautifully so. Beautifully so, though.
Yeah, we're beautiful messes, as Jason Mraz likes to say.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
So Ariana, is there, just before we hop off here, is there anything that we've missed or anything that, prior to having this conversation that you really wanted to talk about that haven't really touched on? Or
I don't know. I feel like we covered it all. We got my childhood, we got my adolescence, variety, business, academic stuff. We hit the nail on the head.
I love it. I love hitting nails on their heads. So the last question. Oh, come on! Did you really not expect that? But first,
you didn't say the word box in some way, shape, or form. But
I'm always going to forget about that whole subliminal message with that term, considering it's just
in
not
the very first
anything.
Episode.
Yeah,
anyway,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I have to go back and listen to that.
Yeah, please do. You can see how much we've really matured. But if you're listening and not watching, I'm giving in big quotations, by the way.
Yes.
If you haven't subscribed to YouTube, please do. You're missing out. But Ariana, one of the things we love to ask our listeners, and sometimes they know what's coming, sometimes they don't, is we are the Getting Juicy podcast. We love to bring a lot of juice, and we love to know, what is your favorite fruit juice if you were a fruit juice, and why?
That's a good question. I feel like orange and mango mixed together is my favorite. I do like orange juice. I don't like mango juice on its own, but when you add those two together, there's just something super special about that.
You're an experimenter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm like you're trying to decipher you.
All the stuff.
Yeah, you like to mix that shit up and make it spin on its head. I love that. I love that. Well, delicious. Thank you so much for taking your time in your day to be on our podcast, and it's so lovely to connect with you virtually and to know that you're doing incredibly well with everything that you've been growing and adapting with, and we're super excited to see the near future of how everything develops for you.
Yeah, thank you. Exactly. It was super fun and so good to connect with you again, Hero.
Yeah, and it was so nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Fabulous. So yeah, good luck with everything. Stay safe, stay as sane as possible. That's what I was saying, stay sane to people. They're like, but what if I don't want to be sane all the time? Like, yeah, fair enough. That's sane. Yeah, it is fair.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay. Cool. Awesome.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.
Welcome.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.